So for this next discussion, we've set a really solid foundation in terms of, as a developer, what are some things that I need to do? Okay, I need to most likely or probably connect with the community and make sure that I'm engaging with them to make sure that my project idea makes sense for the community that I plan on bringing it online. We've also discussed what the engagement looks like in terms of public agencies and public-private partnerships. And something that I want to have in this conversation is really provide a framework of inspiration in terms of community being a place of living, playing, and working. So I brought some really fantastic folks to speak to some things that are happening here on the Northeast side. I think we can start off by living, because in a community, you got to have a place to live. So we have Miss Gina Sofola. Did I say that right? I'm going to let her correct me. But we have Miss Gina, who is a developer here in Northeast Oklahoma City, who's spearheading the Page Woodson development. So Miss Gina, if you could kind of introduce yourself, talk about the project, and let us know what's going on.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Gina Sofola, and I am the project manager owner's rep for the developer who is developing the Page Woodson site. And we started developing Page Woodson roughly around 2014. That was when I became introduced to the developer. I myself had been working on the historic Douglas, which was really the last vestige of African American asset in the community. And I had been working on that really since 2004 with other community members, and was fortunate enough to have been part of getting that building on the historic registry. And as a result of that, fast forward when Ron Bradshaw and his son purchased the school building, it was surplus inventory with the Oklahoma City Public Schools. It had been surplus inventory for more than 20 years. And when they purchased it, I was introduced to them. I was introduced to them by Councilman Pettis and Michael Owens, who at the time was working for the Alliance for Economic Development. But my story is really roundabout, even in terms of how they became aware of the work that I had done previously. So I've been involved with the development for quite a long time, and really advocating and wanting to preserve a piece of heritage from the African American community. And that coupled with my background in engineering and project management, which now is 37 years worth of engineering and project management, I've had the opportunity of working with them. We have been developing a community or multifamily housing with the school as the center point of that development. And the whole goal was really to develop a place that melded into the community, where we were really rebuilding the community. And we have now finished phase 3. So we are roughly, phase 1 was the school and the adding of another building, a complementary building. So that was 128 affordable residences. And then our phase 2 was 80 market rate units. And now phase 3 we've just completed in this last year, March, April of this year. We received our certificate of occupancy, and that was 116 units of multifamily residences. But of those 116, 30 of them are affordable. And so we're now starting the planning for phase 4 and 5. Phase 4 will be roughly about 120 to 140 units. It will include a historic and commemorative plaza, as well as a phase 5, which is where we will then bring our amenities. We will be working with hopefully business owners who want to be in the community, want to bring restaurants and other retail establishments there. So that's what we're doing.
That's amazing, and you mentioned, or you touched on, business owners starting to kind of become a part of that conversation, and I think I'd love to bring in Dr. Q to speak to some of the play or the commerce side of development that's happening on the northeast side of Oklahoma City.
For sure, man. Thanks for the opportunity again. Yes, so with Page Woodson having kind of been established in the already in the backdrop as early as around 2014, and I mentioned earlier the Northeast Renaissance Tax Increment Finance District that was established around the same time. More opportunities kind of came to provide, retail or and fill other needs, I should say, that the community kind of expressed needing. One of them being retail, another being healthcare. So I believe around 2017, another developer that had more of an ethical approach that would be comparable, I would say, to the Bradshaws over at Page Woodson, the Pivot Project, along with Sandino Thompson, acquired two lots across from each other over at 23rd and Rhode Island. I believe combined about 40,000 square feet, and it anchored by what is now Centennial Health, which was once the Oklahoma City Clinic. They moved in and became an anchor tenant, which made it possible for the retail space across the street to also exist. And so that entire project became known as Eastpoint. One thing that was cool about it, we talk about ethical development, the name came from the tenants and the community. There was a whole process in terms of naming, and so that's kind of a cool thing. And so since then, since Centennial Health kind of kicked things off over across the street, they took a kind of an approach that would recruit minority business owners as tenants, but also make them co-owners, which was pretty cool. And so each of those co-owners sign a 10-year lease, but they would earn 15% equity stake in the entire project, which would after that 10-year lease, they take with them whether they keep their business there or not. So true co-owners and true collaborators in the process, and so that really create that space for play. So inside of the Eastpoint development, we have, it was kicked off by Intentional Fitness. They were the first tenant to open up. They are a gym. They have, classes, but they also kind of have an open area where people can kind of lift whenever. Then I believe the next tenant was Lori Chanel, which is a creative space. Two young guys who are photographers, graphic designers. They make T-shirts. They have, art shows that they curate, and also special events and things of that nature. Monarch Properties came on as a tenant. Monarch, if you're not familiar with them, they are builders and developers in our area. They build a lot of contemporary and modern style homes, and very high quality aesthetic. And then also you have Bell Books, which is a bookstore. They also provide publishing services. We have an optometrist, Look See Eye Care. And then you have Kindred Spirits, which is a community gathering space and watering hole that we hope to be a convener for, kind of builders of the future of Northeast Oklahoma City. Northeast Renaissance is going to have a community workspace there. And am I leaving anything out, DeAndre? No. Okay. And so, what was cool about the whole project is how it kind of from the outset was designed to bring in businesses run by folks who are either had a connection to the community or who look like the folks who existed in the community that could provide a space for folks who lived in the community to engage with. And so it's not only providing commerce, but placemaking that attracts folks who are here and folks who from outside of from the broader metro to really engage with this centerpiece of Northeast Oklahoma City. This is a place where One OKC has existed, for about 3 years. Last year, Juneteenth, we had a Juneteenth festival along 23rd Street that was amazing. So a lot of cultural activity. I did fail to mention Restore OKC in the market, which was another need that the community had, was access to fresh produce and groceries. With the closure of what we knew as Buy for Less over at 23rd and Martin Luther King, our partners at Restore OKC responded almost immediately to establish a market for the community that they existed in, and then built upon that and took down the space that was at Eastpoint to provide a smaller grocery concept, but much needed. And so over at Eastpoint, we kind of have all of these elements. We got the healthcare, we got groceries, we got retail for folks to gather, have fun, and also get essential services. So,
and with ethical. With ethical development kind of being the main focus of these conversations, right? And we now have these amazing places to live with Page Woodson, or these amazing places to go shop or gather and have fun with places like Eastpoint. We often hear within minority communities and development of minority communities displacement, and a lot of that has to do with just individuals and folks in this community not having opportunity to increase their financial stability and their financial security. So DeAndre, can you kind of speak to just workforce opportunities that are going to be happening on the northeast side of Oklahoma City that these folks can really lean into, in terms of being able to, when you engage with the community, letting them know what's on the horizon so that this community can elevate from a wealth and a financial perspective?
Yes, sir. Again, I am DeAndre Martin. Aside from helping out with PlaceKeepers, I'm a project manager with the Innovation District. And the Innovation District, we're actually housed in this building. It's 1.3 square miles northeast of downtown. So our physical boundaries are Robinson to the west, to Lottie on the east, and then from 4th Street up to 13th Street. So OU Health, OMRF, the Research Park, this building are all within our district, and the city's focus here is to make this the STEM kind of, like destination spot. So anything aerospace, healthcare, business services, biopharma manufacturing, drones, a lot of that will begin to take place here in our home in Northeast Oklahoma City. So within my role at the Innovation District, a lot of community members championed me to come over here, including Councilman Pettis, Councilwoman Nice, Q, really just to have a voice from the community to see how, with all of the developments and opportunities that are available within the Innovation District, how do we tap into those? So my main jobs with the Innovation District are on education, STEM education in Northeast Oklahoma City schools, and then workforce development. So speaking to the workforce development piece first, when I first came on, we did a survey of all the jobs available within the Innovation District. Just within our 1.3 square miles, there are 562 jobs available. Right now, about 145 of those jobs only require a high school diploma. But on the other side of that statistic is that only 4% of the surrounding neighborhood actually work in the district. And if you're familiar with Northeast Oklahoma City, we have one of the lowest median incomes in the city. So how can we have this thriving district in our community where people aren't benefiting from the jobs, from the resources and things like that that are available literally right outside their porch? And so that's what I've been working on since I came over here. Like I said, most of these jobs start anywhere from $17 an hour for high school diploma jobs and up. They are STEM related, but a lot of them are like client services, patient facing, a lot of STEM support roles that people can come, especially young individuals getting started, just to bypass some of the traditional ways we've gone about employment, just to be in a different environment and open yourself up to more opportunities and things like that. On the education side, we are working on programs that we'll put into Martin Luther King Elementary, the Millwood Public School System, Thelma Reese Parks, FD Moon, and Douglas High School. But outside of our committee is, or outside of our organization is the TIF Education Committee. So during the panel before, they mentioned the Northeast Renaissance TIF. So the Innovation District also has a TIF attached to its district. And what's really cool about the Innovation District's TIF is that instead of just being used for real estate development, they put a portion of those funds aside to go to STEM education and workforce development in Northeast Oklahoma City. So over the 25-year life of this TIF, there's, without any new private developments in the district, there'll be about $18 million that are generated that'll go straight into Northeast Oklahoma City schools and workforce development. We don't sit on the committee, we kind of help in an administrative role, but I think that was great, foresight on Councilman Pettis's part by adding that into the TIF district when they first established that district.
That's awesome. And then I guess, because we just wanted to make this a quick panel to just give you all some perspective and insight in terms of the live development, the play development, and the work development that's happening here on the Northeast side. If I'm an emerging developer and I'm hesitant about bringing a new project online in a minority community for fear that it might not be a success or there might not be the demand or support, Gina and Dr. Q, can you speak to just how well the developments have been doing up until this point and provide these folks with some encouraging words to engage and participate in that commercial and residential development piece as well?
You want me to provide encouraging words? Okay. Okay, so I'm not a person who kind of sugarcoats anything. So I will say the development, Page Woodson has been going well. It's been doing extremely well, but it didn't start out that way. And it was not an easy project to get off the ground. Every phase of it has been a challenge. And the first phase was especially a challenge. Many people came through, were very excited about the fact that we were putting back in service. We had, one, preserved an African American asset. 2, we were putting it back in service. 3, the apartments were absolutely beautiful. And 4, they were very affordable. But even with that affordability came restrictions because of how that product was underwritten. And those restrictions somehow end up casting a net that's pretty broad, but because it seemingly casts a net that's broad. In other words, when we do a market study, for instance, that says, do you need affordable housing in Oklahoma? Yes, we do need affordable housing in Oklahoma. And that product, for instance, is targeted at people who make no more than 60% of the median income. And so when we look at Oklahoma City as a whole, when we look at the median income, and we take 60% of it, there are a lot of people who would fit within that segment. But what ends up happening is when you start really trying to attract people to a property, people tend to have their preferences in terms of where they want to live. If they are working at Tinker Air Force Base, for instance, they want to live near there. Or if they're working at certain, say for instance, if they're in education, they want to live near where they work. And so it's very difficult to necessarily say, okay, we have this beautiful product over here, and you should come and leave your area or your community and come and live where we live. And then you have the restrictions that say you still have to make a certain minimum because you have to be able to afford the rent. Even if it's affordable, you have to afford it. So you have to at least make twice the monthly. You have to be able to bring home twice what the monthly rent is. So for an affordable product, 60% of the median income for a single person is roughly $29,000 a year. That's very difficult to find that person, because if they make $1 more, they cannot live there. And so that first product took us more than a year to lease. And because it takes more than a year to lease, you lose those tax credits that for every product or every apartment that you could not lease in the time required, you lose the tax credits. And if you lose the tax credits, that means you pay that money back. And if the property is not cash flowing, that means the developer lost his development fee. So it's not all glorious. There are challenges, and you have to really understand the dynamics, the product that you're developing. You have to understand the underwriting requirements, how it's, in other words, how it's being financed. All of those things come into play. You need to understand the market. You need to understand the rules. The rules of engagement really make a big deal, because you could lose your shirt. And so it is, it's doing well now, but it hasn't been, everybody's not making money rolling in dough. And that first phase, no one made any money, actually. And only, quite frankly, that product does not cash flow.
And I would say that Page Woodson is probably PhD level development in terms of the complexities and that they had to incorporate in order to make it work in terms of like stacking capital, right? And I would say Eastpoint would be similar in that, and for that reason, incoming developers get to stand on the shoulders of giants. So Eastpoint can stand on Page Woodson, and then other folks that are wanting to come in and do ethical development can stand on the shoulders of Eastpoint, because what we've done is we've kind of created, or I shouldn't say created, but improved the market to the extent that financing is possible. So we're optimistic about the future. I would say in terms of Eastpoint, there were a lot of challenges initially as well, mainly around financing. I'm not sure I've heard the term like redlining come up so far in the conference. It has? Okay. Yeah. But for a period of time, it's been difficult to finance development in small business, meaning borrow money to get things going, right? And so at Eastpoint, that was the case, and so it was necessary. That's why it was necessary for, going out and getting supplemental or getting things subsidized, like using tax credits or using TIF funds. And that was what happened with kind of both of these developments. And once our development got going, or at least the construction of it did, you still had tenants that needed to start businesses, and they needed to borrow money to start their businesses. And so, while they did benefit from the funds that the developer went and kind of helped to get, I didn't mention this, but aside from that ownership, they also had access to some funds that would help them like build out their spaces, but they weren't funds to help them like run their business, right? So it had been really challenging for businesses to get money to get started, and therefore we had a slow start of getting tenants in and getting them moving. So at this point we have, as I mentioned, Intentional Fitness is operating, Monarch is operating, Kindred is operating, but we still haven't gotten all of the rest of those tenants that have leases operating, and people are paying. Some of them are paying rent and can't get their business started because they can't borrow enough money to get their businesses started. However, we're a pilot, or like we're a proof of concept that is going to make it possible for the neighbor that comes in and develops next door to not only find financing to build, but also for those businesses to find financing because of the businesses across the street that went through that 3 to 4 years of tension, right? And so that's what it takes. It takes pioneers. It takes creators. It takes folks like that or entities like that to get things going, and we feel like we're getting it going. So to encourage the future ethical developers, we paved the road a little bit, so now you can go ahead and hop in a lane. So.
One thing that I didn't mention when I was talking about the Innovation District is that we actually have, a lot of you have probably seen it, but they're going to take this fence down around this building, and there will be a $140 million development right outside these doors. That'll be called Convergence. It'll be home to Wheeler Bio, which is a drug manufacturing company. They will bring, over the next 10 years, their company alone projects to bring over 1,000 jobs to that company alone. So there will be a lot of jobs coming into our area within the next few years. And my goal is to get people in the right programs and the right trainings to be able to take advantage of these jobs, because if our community isn't the workforce ready to take part in that, then they'll go find them from other communities, other states, and soon that's how, like Ms. Gina said, you want to live by where you work. Well, 1,000 people could possibly not be from our community working in this space and things like that. So we need to lay the groundwork now about getting young people, anybody that wants to be retrained, reskilled, into these kind of programs to take advantage of these jobs. And next to Convergence will be our building through MAPS 4. It'll be called Innovation Hall, and it'll be owned by the city but ran by the Innovation District. And the plans for that building haven't all the way been fleshed out yet, but it'll essentially be an open space for the community, for children, anybody to come learn more about STEM in a central location, highlight our district assets, which are the companies and organizations that we have within the district.
And I say the potential, so, with 1,000 new jobs means like the potential for like 1,000 families, right, that are descendant upon this area. So they're, many of them are going to need a place to live, right, a place to, and a place to play. So they're working, they're going to need a place to live and play. And so for our ethical developers of the future, this is what we know is coming. Like, these are facts. So you want to consider that as you make your choices.
That's awesome. So, I mean, my biggest takeaway is that the road hasn't been the easiest road to travel, but because of folks like Gina, Dr. Q, and DeAndre, you all are really laying the foundation so that any projects that you all are looking to take on in the next few years there's a high likelihood that you can find success because of the work that folks like this and many others have already done. So thank you all for stepping in and just having a conversation today. We're going to have a 2-minute break before we get into our next discussion, which I'm really excited for. So we'll see you back in a few.